Good day, gardeners. This is Dick Zondag, the garden doctor, and this morning, because it's been very hot and dry in Wisconsin early, we thought it would be a good idea to do a video on watering. There are three ways that I do watering in my garden to keep the plants growing. For spot watering, it's hard to beat the old watering can, and it's not only a good thing that you can use a watering can, but if you see that your plants are not performing well, if the color of the plants is not the plants are not dark green, you can add soluble plant food to the water and then spot water. So if you see that one area is lacking moisture, if the leaves are starting to wilt, you can come in, sure you have a water breaker on the end so that you're not drowning them and not knocking the soil away from the root system, but you give them a good gentle watering with a watering can. And we just water this lettuce. And we don't have to bother the carrots or the broccoli or cauliflower that are behind it. Then, if the whole bed or the whole garden needs watering, we go to the hose. Be sure you have a nice water breaker on the end, and I also use a valve to control the pressure at which the water is coming out. So again, you don't knock any of the seedlings out if they're small. And the principle behind watering is you want to water enough so that you don't have to water every day. You want to deep water. And so what we're going to do is just hold the hose and water so that you get the water down in the soil around the plant. This is especially true with raised bed gardens because the soil is usually thinner, and because it's raised, it's more exposed to the sunlight and the heat, and so it therefore needs water more often than you would if you were just growing plants in the ground. So we just give the water, give the plants a nice watering. And again, when we get to the trickle irrigation, I'm going to show you a device where you can actually feed the plants while you're watering them. So here we see the last of the radishes that were in the carrots, and we have them watered. Now in the bed behind me, where you can see the onions and the garlic that are planted, and oh, we have a couple of helpers. Come on up. A couple of my granddaughters are visiting and they wanted to help water. So we'll get the water going. Okay, you go ahead and water. And you water up on this half, and then we'll let your sister water the other half. There you go.
Susie, spray him. No.
There we go, you got the other side. Okay, now let your sister do a little watering. Here we go. You do these over here, okay? Get them started young. I guess we can see the flowers already starting in the garlic, and we're going to be coming back and showing you how we remove those, because we don't want the garlic to go to seed, because it would take it would take energy from the bulb that's being created. So this is probably the easiest way to water your garden, and if you have a hose and you can get the hose out to the garden. If you want to water deeply, we put it on the end of an oscillating sprinkler that you can turn the water on and let the water sprinkle on the garden for an hour or two, and that way you're deep watering, and then you don't have to water very often. Here we are at the test garden for tomatoes, where you have an extensive tomato test this year, and actually I've put quite a few tomatoes in to see how this works. But what we're doing here is we brought water out from my house to this extension here, and then we have one hose that has the breaker on the end of it, and this hose does the trickle irrigation. And the trickle irrigation is a tube, a plastic tube that you attach to the hose, and it has spots where there have been holes punched in it so that the water trickles out as the pressure builds up in the tube. And so what we've done is we've hooked one of the sides to this trickle irrigation, and what I do is I let it run for a couple of hours so that we water real deeply. I have peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant, and a few onions as a companion with the tomatoes. And so we let the water run for a couple of hours so it deeply waters the onions and the tomatoes and peppers. And another thing that I do here is this is called a siphon attachment, and what you do is you take the hose off the water supply, you put this in between the water supply and the hose, and then this tube goes down into a bucket, and in the bucket you put either a high nitrogen fertilizer like 20-20-20 if you want to get the plants started off in a good spot, because the high nitrogen is what causes the plants to grow. And then after that, you want them to start fruiting, and so what you do is you switch to a fertilizer called, this is another one of Jack's fertilizers, 10-30-20. The 30 is the phosphorus, and after a while you don't want the plants to grow as fast and to put all their energy into the leaves. You want them to start producing the tomatoes, so that's what the phosphorus does. So those are the three ways that I water in my garden. Remember, the watering can is for spot irrigation, for getting the plants growing. The second kind is the water hose, where you have a breaker, and it's really important to have that breaker so that the water comes down like rain and doesn't splash things out. And I can also put that siphon on that hose for fertilizing that way. And then thirdly, the trickle irrigation, which I have about 200 tomato plants, and we'll be looking at that in another video on how to grow tomatoes. We've got the Florida weave and a couple of different things, but we'll go into that when we do another video. So with the hot weather being the way it is, be sure you water heavily, so you deep water and then let it dry out between waterings. That's very important. This is Dick Zondag, the Garden Doctor. If you have comments, please list them below. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button and the bell so when we do new videos that you're alerted to that, and watch for many of our shorts.